know this is one of your questions, so I'm just going to segue into it for you. Sorry. This kind of leads to a really good point, which is one that comes up a lot when we're talking, am I too old to code? Am I too old to learn to code? And I think the answer to that is clearly no. You see a lot of these like startups out in San Francisco and everyone's like, these young kids, blah, blah, blah. A, you're not too old to learn to code, ever. I mean, really, ever. I hope I'm doing this till I'm like 80 just for fun. But, it's terrifying, right? But I think it's just like a reminder that like, you also bring a lot of life experience, and that life experience is extremely valuable in the workplace. Like, outside of everything else, you can take a 19-year-old prodigy who has brilliant coding skills and has been in advanced programming classes since he was 5, right? Take this kid, he's had everything, every opportunity. He may have no people skills. And at the end of the day, that is also part of our job. We have to work on teams, we have to collaborate. In a perfect world, we're working with the creative teams, the UX teams, with accounts teams and clients. And those skills are things that, especially as you reach those later years in your life, you have so much more experience and exposure with that, and it's a learned skill too. So don't discount the other skills you bring to the table, like a biology degree or something else. Like, if you have a previous career and you're making a switch, you may be bringing a ton to the table to a company that needs web, mobile, whatever developers for that industry.
I didn't start learning until I was 28. I know some people think that's really young, some people think that's old. I know like a lot of people, this was my impression when I first started, is that I thought everyone who knew how to code learned when they were 12 and had been doing it for 10 years, and that it was definitely too late for me until I read my friend's blog post. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe I can do it, maybe I can catch up. And the thing is, there's so many new things constantly coming out all the time that other people who are in the industry are having to catch up, and so you might as well catch up with them.
One point about the San Francisco kind of young startup people that you read about, just think about how the story, it's not a cool story to say there's 40-year-old guys in a cubicle working programming, and that's actually the more real story that doesn't get into the media. So actually a lot of my coworkers in my current job and last job are a lot older, and guess what? They're more experienced. I learned more from them, and I like working from them. And again, like being older, you bring a lot to the table. And then another thing about, I guess, being older. So for me, I love learning. So for me, like as long as you have the mentality of like loving to learn, like you're young. So one of the most exciting things I saw I got to go as well to the Legal Way DC by just getting a ticket and then saying, okay, I'm gonna have to go. But I got to sit with some of my coworkers. Some of them are, a lot older than me, and they do have that industry experience, 10, 20 years of experience coding. But the cool thing is when Swift came out, the new programming language for iOS, just seeing them being so excited, like one of the programmers who's been, I think, doing Objective-C for like 25 years with Apple and has a ton of experience. He was like a little kid in the candy shop. He was like, oh my gosh, I was born with Objective-C, I'm gonna go learn this, and I wanna go learn this. So just, to me, like that's where I was like, okay, I'm working in the right place. So as long as you have that mentality, and that's where I wanna be when I'm a lot older, is I want to learn new things, because there's going to be, and that's why I'm in this industry, there's going to be so many new things to learn. So right now it's Swift, like I can't even imagine what it'll be in 5 years. It changes, that's only like 3 months ago, I have to like go relearn something. So just having that mentality of always learning is what makes this industry is really cool, and it doesn't matter what age you are.
Yeah, we have a member who I don't think is here, which is probably good because I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce her name correctly, but it's like Candice or something. She actually started learning to code because she wanted to teach her grandchildren how to. Wait, what?
Grandkids, yeah.
Oh yeah, she wanted to teach her grandkids.
She's home tutoring them.
Good, I'm pretty sure I said but she actually now, she like loves Linux. She walks around with Linux on her USB and will like port it on people's computers. Even if they're like, oh, I've heard of Linux, she's like, let me show you. So she's awesome and she's really exciting. So you might meet her at other events, but she's a really good example of like, it can happen.
She's actually preparing herself to get through the Red Hat certification exams. So she's preparing herself for those.
She's really cool. What was I going to ask next? Oh, so say you've been doing this for a while and you finally score your first job. What are some practices or tips that you would suggest after you started and kind of like getting through that first hurdle of now I'm really a programmer?
I think don't be afraid to ask questions. That's true for any job, I think, and don't be afraid to keep learning. And you know, don't stop. Don't be like, you know, I have my job and I'm happy now.
Take risks, ask for forgiveness later, like all the things you keep saying. And have fun. Remember that you have a choice to be there too. And this kind of goes back to the interviewing process, but remember that you're interviewing the company too. And if it's not the right fit for you, know that. Know what you want and what you want out of it. And that will make it a lot easier. If you go into a company and they start asking you these stupid computer science algorithm questions that you're like, A, how does this relate to anything I will be doing here? And B, why would I know that? Like, I know I didn't go to college for a computer science degree and I don't know what this algorithm is and whatever. If they start doing that to you in interviews or even after you've been hired, like, think about that. Make sure that you're also choosing the place that's right for you, because that's really important. And remember that it takes 6 months to get used to a job, at least. When you start at a new office, there's so much to absorb, and it's very overwhelming, and sometimes you hate it for the first couple months. So just remember that it takes time to acquaint to a new job. I mean, that applies to any job, but once you've started, like, give yourself time, seek out people that'll help you out, and take those risks.
The main thing is make sure there's someone in your company who's mentoring you, because you're just starting out. So you need a person there, some kind of advocate to go ask questions to and feel comfortable. And if you don't have that, don't be scared to leave. So actually, the first job out of the boot camp, I got 2 job offers. One was with a company where, like, I went to their office and I saw, oh, they do pair programming and they follow all the best practices, which I cared about, but they weren't cool. So, of course, like, I went with the other company, which was like this super cool startup with like lots of funding and a really popular founder, because it was just kind of that, like, whoa, like, I get to work there, how can I say no? Well, when I got to my office, like on the first day, it was basically like everyone puts on their headphones, and then you're just coding on your own, which is fine for their startup, like that makes sense. But I just pretty much spent, you know, I'd feel bad asking my manager for help because I know he's busy, and in a startup, it's like a lot different because they don't have time to mentor you. So I actually ended up leaving after 3 weeks. I just called the other company and I was like, look, is that offer still valid? Because I knew that was a better place for me, and that was a really great decision because I got to pair program and get the mentorship I needed. So definitely, and that's been, like, for me, like, being a person who's like, I need to know best practices, that's been invaluable to really improve my skills, is having those mentors.
Awesome. And I know I'm just going to throw in a piece of advice because I have a really hard time with this. I often feel like I always wonder whenever I'm stuck, should I know this? And I have a really hard time being like, maybe I should already know this. Like, I need to go figure this out. I don't want to, like, ask a question about something that people expect me to know. And almost always later on, I'll be taught, like, I'll finally figure it out. You know, it'll take me like weeks and weeks. And I'll figure it out and, like, bring it up. And, like, 3 other people will be like, oh, I don't understand that. Can you explain it? Like, oh, man. So don't be afraid of that, and definitely ask those questions. I have a hard time, so I have to live by that, too. So one last question. But kind of, what are some of the coolest things that you've gotten to work on? Whether it is, like, at the current job or just a side project, just kind of explain those things.
So for one of the interviews that I did when I was looking for a job, they told me to code a memory game on the spot. And I was like, what? So I needed them basically to walk me through it. And I didn't get the job, but I did go home, I recreated it. You know, I learned a lot from the interview question. And I ended up using a variation of it as part of my wedding website. I wrote my own wedding website, and on it I put like all these pictures of me and my husband, and like made it a memory game.
So I mentioned that I did a lot of kiosks and installations previously, and at my last job, I am a massive college football fan, which is kind of weird, but I love it. Like football season, I'm a crazy person. So a couple years ago, the company I was working at, we bought a bunch of Kinects, and we built a bunch of cool stuff. And to this day, I still think this is probably the coolest thing I've ever developed, just because I think it's cool, and at the end of the day, it's probably like the worst piece of software I've ever written. But it basically is a combine challenge using the Kinect, a bunch of video and interaction stuff, and it toured with the Heisman all year to different games. So I got to go on site and see it, but you basically, I'm going to demonstrate, this is great. All right, so first step, we got to throw the ball. All right, hit a target, hit a target, hit a target. Pretty cool, right? Second step, dodge people. All right, and then the last step was running in place, 40-yard dash. At the end of the day, I got to go work on that, which was pretty cool. Like, you get to do that every day. Like, I sometimes joke that my job is a game, and it's super fun. But then I got to go to all these sites and see people playing with it. And I think at the end of the day, what we do is so cool. And when you get to see people use what you're doing, it just gets you really excited, especially when it's something cool like that that you care about. But just anything that you're involved in, all of a sudden you are affecting the world around you. You are making people think bigger than they've thought before. Like, you have so much opportunity to create and do cool things. So anyway, thanks for letting me demo my game.
For me, whatever I'm working on at this time is the coolest thing. So looking back, I'm like, oh, I'm embarrassed by it. But currently, I'm really excited because at my job, I get to work like full-time in Swift for the past like month and a half, and that's not something that most people, especially production, could get to work on. So that's been the coolest. But I've also been working recently on a lot of kind of iBeacon related stuff, which has been fun. And then, yeah, I don't know. I don't tend to finish projects very well. I always like start with the next coolest thing. Hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully, I'll keep that excitement at least.
Awesome. So I don't know if anybody here has any questions. We do have time for a few. I don't know if we want to like walk the mic around or if you guys talk loudly.
Just want to say the question back. Yeah.
All
Alright, thanks. Hi, I'm Asia, and I was just wondering if there are any companies or agencies you would recommend for internships in this area?
We do internships at AKQA. just saying, personal point. I'm sure y'all do internships.
We could probably figure out internships. We're working on it. We're working on boot camps, but I don't know what I can say. But maybe Capital One.
I would say I feel like a lot of companies do them. And reach out to somebody, find somebody that works there. And reach out to them and say, hey, do you do internships? Like, here's some stuff I've worked on. I would love to get involved, blah, blah, blah. Like, put yourself out there and take that risk. Again, take a risk. But I remember when I was first doing interviews, like, I basically remember talking to people that were like, I don't know about this, whatever. And I kind of was like, I can do this. Let me tell you about how I would do this. And like, kind of like put it in their face of like, I want to work for you, and this is what I can do. This is what I can bring to the table. And go find it. Like, because they're out there. There's a lot of them in this area, I think, if you just start looking.
I'm loud enough. I think I found my first internship through meeting people at meetups like this. Because I was at a data meetup and they were talking about something that they thought was a very big problem, and I was like, shit, my professor taught me how to do that. I know how to do that. And this is a 45-year-old man standing up there and saying that his company has a problem. So I walked up to him and he said, I'm 20, but I think I can solve it. So he said, come over and talk to my developers, because he was not the technical guy. So I went over to the company, talked to the developer, and the developer walked out and said, hi. So that's how I got my first internship, because I was working on something and I just went for a random meetup and I had the courage to go up and talk about myself. As Natasha said, I marketed myself. So don't be scared to say what you know. It may be a very small thing, because what I was talking was one single problem. They probably didn't hire me because I never got to work on it. So I'm sure that they didn't hire me for that particular skill set, but they were just happy that I was out there and I was confident enough to go up to him and say that I can do this.
Yeah, and actually, I don't know why I never thought to do this, but I feel like you can apply to any internship role, even if it says like we're hiring college students. Like you can always apply, like maybe they won't use the system, but just apply and put your name in there and be like, actually I'm going to be better than these college students, like this is all my experience, this is why you should hire me. I feel like that'll work really well. And the whole make an app that relates to their company does wonders. I know there's a guy at our company, John, he's a lawyer, like really good lawyer, done crazy stuff. But he made an app that like solved a problem that he solved for another company, and it was like, look, I think you guys would want this. And they were like, on the spot, they were like, come in, we need this so bad, and like brought him in and like had him walk through the code and like hired him really quickly. So probably, I would suggest just apply to anywhere you see an internship, even if they say it's not for you.
So after I finished Mobile Makers for iOS, and this was, I guess, maybe not an internship, but I went back, and I usually have a side project, but I was kind of burnt out, and I was like, just someone tell me what to do. So I posted on Hacker News, which is this, super popular industry-wide Reddit for programmers, I guess. But I posted on there and was like, hey, I'll make an app for anyone for $200. And I mean, I wasn't looking for an internship, but I got a lot of, inquiries of people are like, hey, make this for me. So that's kind of an interesting way to do it, is to start making it for them and to start working with them. And then I've had companies that I was making the app for who are like, oh, would you be able to do it full time? So you can definitely have kind of back channel marketing, guerrilla marketing tactics that you can think of to get yourself out there.
Another thing is like, just because a company doesn't say they have an internship available, doesn't mean that they won't take you as an intern. So like email them.
Yeah.
And just be like, hey, I'm really interested in your company. I saw you had this project. I really liked how you did this. Like, make a point of like getting in the door with some kind of like in, and be like, I would love to come on board and intern for you guys, or if you have a junior level position open, I'd be very interested. Put yourself in that position of like, you might be good enough for that junior position. You might not need the internship. They might be willing to take you on at that level. So like, look for junior positions too when you're starting. Like, don't limit yourself to just internships. And some of those might come back to you and be like, well, we don't have an opening right now for a junior. Would you want to come in as an intern?
Hi, I'm Rita. I just wanted to ask, you talk a lot about the boot camps. Could you talk like, where do you find these boot camps, and like a range of how much it costs, how long does it take, and what type of commitment is a boot camp?
Yeah, I guess I go to a lot of boot camps, but so I actually have I wrote a book, or like an ebook on like all the boot camps to give you a variety of them. Maybe I can send it out. Yeah, I don't have it linked anymore, but
I do.
It's like, I don't know if it's outdated, but in the past 2 years, there's been an explosion of boot camps, and there's really lots of options. So the one we went to called Dev Boot Camp, and that one is in San Francisco, New York, and Chicago. And that one is a full-time, you have to quit your job or have a sabbatical for I think 8 or 9 weeks, and it's very intense. You're basically there all day programming, that costs around $12,000. And Mobile Makers, they've raised their price to around $10,000, and that one is iOS based, and it is full-time in Chicago. I don't know if there's DC ones.
There's not.
Yeah, General Assembly.
The web one.
And then if you want other options, one good one is Block.io, bloc.io. And that one is, and actually Mobile Makers also has a remote option. I think Block.io you have to commit 25 hours a week. to learning iOS. I think Mobile Makers actually has a remote option that they're testing where you can do full-time remote. I'm not sure if that's it. There's Flatiron School that does iOS and Ruby on Rails in New York, and they're also around $12,000. I don't know. There's in San Francisco. There's one that's like part-time, but it's for existing developers called CodePath, and they're kind of like an evening Android or iOS class for existing developers. So that could be something maybe later in your career. So I went to their Android class and it was great. And I'm probably missing a ton. So there, if you Google coding bootcamp, there's a website called Course Report. I think CourseReport.org, and they actually have a whole comparison. This has become really crazy. So there's a whole comparison chart of what do you want to learn. Yeah, there's a JavaScript one called Hack Reactor. That one is out in San Francisco. That one's $20,000. Oh yeah, HackBright is the all women's one in San Francisco doing Python. Yeah, Python. Yeah, there's pretty much pick your flavor. And of course there's the free online classes.
One word, sorry. I don't know which one is actually good and which one is for what, but what I do know is that there are tons of them which actually give scholarships out to women developers, especially if you're starting afresh and you don't have any certification, if you don't have any background, they're all very supportive because it's like the new thing. They want to support, they want to bring in diversity. This is what the industry is missing right now. And the industry is starting to understand that we need more diverse people, we need more diversity in the technology area. So they're very appreciative of it. I think I posted a link on our Twitter page sometime, but I'll pass it on to Kaylin so she would add it. There was a TechCrunch article or a Mashable article, I cannot remember, which actually went through all the options that are going to start either in near 2014 or in 2015, which have a very good comparison of how you can apply for a scholarship. Some of them pay for your living, some of them give you a discount, or some of them give you extra time. So they all have something or the other that they're offering only for women developers, or people who are women who identify as female and they're just starting new.
And just to say the benefits of boot camps, because I don't know if we've covered it, but for me boot camps have been invaluable because you're forced to think about this 24/7. So and then you're also put in a position where you have no choice. If you quit your job and risks everything, it makes you do it. And then the other big thing is just having instructors there all the time, answering your questions. And also, I think probably the most valuable is actually having other students there. So there's a lot of pair programming and just being in that environment of everyone is doing it, so I have to do it, has been really great. Do you want to talk about benefits for you?
I just want to mention quickly, they also have mentors. So Natasha was my mentor, and that's how I came here. So.
So I didn't do one of these, but actually, one of my biggest pet peeves about the news you see today is the whole everyone can code, and it kind of makes it feel this is so easy. Why don't you know to code already? You're an idiot. That's how I read it. And I'm well, okay. Actually, coding is really, really hard. This is not something that you pick up in a weekend, and it's not something you pick up even in 9 weeks. But a boot camp is so awesome to kind of you should code before you go to a boot camp. You should be coding for a while before you go there, because it will not work if this is your first exposure. Don't fall for that trap. I know they try to make it sound like anyone can do it. Don't do it. But if you've been doing it for a bit, that will be absolutely the point that takes you from a moderate, I really like this, to I have experience and I feel I know what I'm talking about. So don't undervalue that. And I mean, it's 10,000 is kind of a lot, but if you can get 5,000 or 3,000, I mean, that's a fraction of your degree.
Yeah, so from going to boot camp, since I moved to DC, or to San Francisco from DC, I have now doubled my salary. And after graduating my first boot camp, I increased my salary by 30%. So I guess, yeah, maybe think long term. It might seem expensive, but if you think about a computer science degree, that's 4 years of college. If you go to private school, that's $50,000 a year that someone is paying for 4 years. So $10,000 in 3 months of your life is really like not that big for the value you get of just like having someone give you a structured program and taking you to that level of I'm gonna guess what I'm doing to and like kind of make it work to wow, I can actually like go to a job interview and like again, like there's so much to learn. So at the end of the boot camp, you're not gonna be like I'm a professional, I know what I'm doing. One of the things I realized at the end of my boot camp was there is so much more to learn. I know nothing. So, but at least get you started, at least in knowing where to go next.
Hi, my name is Delinda, and I'm one of those older coders that you were talking about. Like, I took classes in Flash, and my first website was built for front page, so I know about that. And I am trying to make a career transition into coding. And so along those lines, I enrolled in the interactive journalism program over at American University, which is teaching me digital media skills. And through that program, I found that I'm really still way more interested in the coding. And I discovered the field of data journalism, so I think I'm going to maybe start heading in that direction. But as someone who doesn't have any work experience in coding beyond updating web pages, through my job, and when I first started the job back in 2000, I was actually building websites for my job and for Page. What is it that recruiters are looking for? I read that they expect to see you have put some code up on Git, and you're supposed to have a portfolio. I mean, what's supposed to be in this portfolio? What organizations maybe are you supposed to be affiliated with? What are they looking to see when they're looking to hire you?
So I'm actually going to go ahead and just hit on this real quick. I actually came from journalism, and I did a lot of data visualization earlier in my career. And I think there are some really specific news organizations that you can look into. Society for News Design is a really, really good one. And in this area, they're very, very active. They have group meetups pretty frequently. That would be a great place to start. All of the major newspapers around here do a lot of that work and hire interns like crazy, and would probably hire you because you have experience with that stuff. Reach out to them. It's a very interesting and niche field, and it will reward you tenfold. Like, it was a ton of fun to work in, and like when I got out of it, it was like, do I really want to leave this? Yes, no. So like, I think don't discount the experience you already have, because even though like your technical skills are maybe a little outdated, you have a lot of experience with that. That program also has very good people know that program. So like, use that to your advantage. Use your professors to help you meet people, and definitely go check out S&P.
I do just want to call out, you asked the question, like, how do I show that I have experience, like, what should they be looking for? And before you asked that question, you like listed 3 or 4 things that you've done that show that you have experience. And it might be a little bit dated, but you totally should not discount that. Like, editing web pages, and it might seem small, and I did this little change here, is real credit that you should put on there and that you should give to yourself. I think you read about how women don't really talk confidently about themselves, and I know I have a hard time with this as well, but I think that's a good example where you don't need to do that. Like, you do have experience that can show that you've had this interest for a long time. So it's not something that's just like a phase you're going through, and definitely use that as like an example. It could even be like, I used to change the CSS in my blog like 8 years ago. That's not like saving the world, but that's experience that you can talk about. You can show I've been interested in this for a long time, so it's definitely worth mentioning.
Up front here.
I just wanted to piggyback on the articles about the dev boot camps. I think I saw the ones that you might have posted on Twitter. It was TechCrunch. And for those of us who hear the number $20,000 and think, oh, wow, that's a lot, that could be cost prohibitive. I went through those articles, and the prices range from about $5,000 to about $20,000. The thing that made the articles extremely valuable, I think, for me was in reviewing them, they rate them in a way that will help you understand what might be the best fit for you. So there are some dev boot camps on there that might be highly rated, but there are numbers in there about the kinds of jobs that the graduates go on to get. There are numbers and things in those articles that can help you make a choice that might be a little less expensive, Also, the thing that's encouraging is they really are trying to encourage women to join. So there are scholarships, there are also payment plans, and there are also some really top-rated boot camps that will just ask for a small percentage of your salary for maybe a year after you graduate. So there's no upfront cost.
Yeah.
So there are some things that make those numbers sound better.
And just to piggyback on that, if also you're contemplating doing it, if you can go to boot camp and talk to people there and see what's going on there, because there are different cultures in different boot camps, and some are a lot more hardcore than others.
Coming from personal experience.
That's right. I went to a dev boot camp and I did not have a successful or happy experience there. I finished, but I was traumatized. I'm in recovery now.
And so I'll talk to Jane to like learn
What not to do.
Experience and stuff.
Yeah, I'm basically like what not to do in life. But yeah, so there are lots of different ones out there, and you want before you spend that much money, because it's not just the tuition. It's like I had to go move to Chicago, but the living expenses was as much as the tuition.
She has experience, don't listen to her. She really has the experience around like what to make sure your boot camp is not doing. And she also joined really early, and there were just, when you talk to her, there's very amateur mistakes that the boot camp was making. But like talk to her, learn from them, and look for that. If you are interviewing with the boot camp and you see like certain behaviors that's just very aggressive and it's kind of maybe male dominated, maybe you don't want to go that route. So like,
and even at that boot camp, I think the San Francisco
city location
is way different from the Chicago one, like way different.
Yeah.
And also, like, just, I want
It's
to
like being at college.
reiterate it's really, really important to learn on your own, to really understand what you want from the boot camp. So at the boot camp, I was kind of like the rebel person, because I came in and I was like, I paid this much money, this is what I want to get out of it. And for me, it was like, I knew like what my gaps of knowledge, what specifically I wanted. So like for me, it was a very conscious, like, and I need to go home at 6 because like I can't be around, it's hard for me to be around like 40 people, and I think it's different amounts now, but it was like you're around like 40 people all day long, and I'm an introvert, so like at 6 o'clock I'm gonna leave, but there were people who would stay till 2, so a lot of it is again like knowing yourself, and I knew for myself that would not be healthy for me, and I knew I had to sleep for 8 hours, and like definitely you can have FOMO, right? Like the other people, maybe they stayed up till 2 and they've discovered some cool things. But to me, for me, I didn't care. And then like if I didn't finish all the assignments, I didn't care, because I cared about, did I fill my gaps in knowledge? So the more you know about yourself beforehand, the more successful you can make the boot camp experience for yourself.
And that 1 year preparation really would have helped. Because I went in having done none. It was a huge mistake in that sense. I mean, I think it would have been a much better experience if I had done what you did.